Welcome everyone to Drive To Wynn. I'm Justin Bell, I'm your host, and I'm here inside the fabulous Wynn Las Vegas. The show is also brought to you by Mobil1 for the love of driving. Anyway, we just had the Formula One summer break, and while the social media for all those drivers, as I predicted, pretty much was them off on yachts and boats and planes and doing the most incredible things, you also got a little taste of how they live their lives. Lewis heading off to Africa to immerse himself in ancient cultures, and Carlos Sainz just looking incredibly sexy on board boats with probably absolutely beautiful people all around him at all times. I know which one I'd rather do. Anyway, it was just a great break, but as you can tell with Formula One, it never ceases behind the scenes, and we'll get into that in a minute. Obviously, this past weekend, what a way to come back of a little bit of a respite straight in to the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort, and a track I raced on many moons ago in Vauxhall Lotus. I was there, Mika Häkkinen, Alain Matnish. They obviously went on to great Formula One success and sports car success, but we were there driving on the track. It's not quite the same as the one it is now, but I still remember the way, because it's right on the edge of the coast there, the sand when the wind would blow across the track and you come around a corner and suddenly slide from one end to the other. So I always think about that when I'm watching them break their line or sort of make a mistake. I'm thinking, I wonder if that was the same sand interfering with their Formula One cars as it was on my little baby Vauxhall Lotus. But we have a great guest this week. I wanted to bring in someone, who was Dutch and also was at the race and a racing driver. So Renger van der Zande is joining us from Ibiza, actually, where he's shot off for a family vacation. So we're going to be joining in with him, which will be super fun. But I have been busy. It has not been a time of going to Ibiza for me. I was at the famous Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance for the week, had the best time, pretty much hosted everything that I could between the Wednesday and the Sunday, did an M5 BMW, their new reveal for North America, 2 stunning cars, and then involved with Casa Ferrari on the Saturday. This is all part of my Talk Media group with Jason Jacobson and Tommy Kendall, the Hall of Famer, who was on my show just a couple of weeks ago, and we killed it. We knocked it out of the park. Doubled the viewing figures, was there on the Sunday at my favorite Sunday of the year in terms of these high-end Concours events, hosting Pebble Beach, walking out in front of all those people, welcoming them in a pink suit, no less, was a real highlight for me. So I have been immersed in cars, as if that wasn't enough, came back, did something for Cadillac, launching a thing, talking about a thing called their Cadillac Celestiq, which is an all-electric $350,000 Cadillac, which is pretty wild. And then I went up to Sonoma for the Ferrari Challenge, which is just a great weekend, seeing some of my great friends, my colleagues, my peers who are training all these aspiring gentleman drivers, and some of them are incredibly quick. You talk about Ferraris everywhere, and you can't almost see them. It's mind-numbing. So I enjoyed that weekend a lot, and then straight back to Vegas. Here we are. You won't be able to tell it, but you might just from the desk. This is the XSM studios here, and they've just redone the whole inside of this place. And Jeremiah and Brian and the whole crew have had to adapt to the new technology, but it is pretty swanky. And this is probably the most state-of-the-art studio in North America right now. So look at it. Look at that. I've got the screen down there. I've got a screen up here. And I'm wearing our new T-shirts in case you want one. Anyway, I've had a great time, but sat down on Sunday after the race. Unfortunately, I already had found out who won by the time I got to watch it, which does make you watch the race with a different perspective, because you're always waiting for those cues that eventually lead to the podium that I already knew, because I made that fatal mistake of opening my Instagram against my better judgment. And I went, oh God, I've just seen who won. Anyway, I knew I couldn't get through a whole day without that. But it was pretty cool to watch the race, even with that bit of knowledge in hand, because at the starts I love, and Lando's on pole. What a way to go. He is there in his McLaren. Right next to him on the front row of the grid was Max Verstappen. And I just thought to myself, this is going to kick off. So, and it did, didn't it? Off the line, Lando matched in reaction time, matched Max, got off the line, and then remember, he has not led a first lap from any one of his prior 5 poles. So it's mentally, everyone's like, God, are you capable of winning the race into the first corner, which is a much shorter run, by the way, into the first corner at Zandvoort. And he didn't, but nor did Oscar Piastri behind. And as Lando said, Oscar's probably one of the best starters I know, so probably better than me, and he didn't get off the line either. So it wasn't a driver thing. Reaction time was good. It was probably a systems issue, and they got a setting wrong. Can't wait to ask Renger about that, actually. The weekend really was, as it unfolded from there, the race as it unfolded, when Max pulled away a second, 1.6 seconds, I'm like, my God, we're back to that show again. We've watched this movie before. But Lando never dropped him. He stayed right there, got back in within DRS, and on lap 17 had a show, put his nose in alongside, and then on the 18th lap, just whistled down the straight with the help of DRS, as though he was standing still. We found out subsequently that Max did go with a high downforce rear wing. They were trying to control the rear of the car, which does get very loose there, with all those incredible cambered corners. And I think that was pretty much like an anchor out the back when it came to running down the straight. So really, really incredible to watch. And what a display by Lando. Pulled out those 32 seconds or something, and then got fastest lap on the last lap. Talk about, boom, making your mark felt. So many things unfolded from there during the race, and as I said, we're going to jump into that with Renger in a minute. But the weekend really did bring the best of Formula One. Young driver announcements, a seizure of assets of a team that hadn't paid their bills or paid this part of their sponsorship, and a dominant race wing for a guy who he couldn't seem to get off the line. But the level of that performance was so outstanding that Christian Horner and Helmut Marko from Red Bull called it alarming. So when they say something's alarming, I think we've got quite a lot on down the road for them to worry about. So the final result was Norris by 22 seconds, 22, not 32. Verstappen and then Charles Leclerc, a surprise victory for podium for the Ferrari. It was as though he was not expecting it. Ferrari were not expecting it. I actually spoke to the head of Ferrari Motorsports here at Sonoma about it, and he said, yeah, they weren't expecting it. So quite interesting to see how that worked. But as you can see, the drivers and the teams are supposed to take time off, but that doesn't mean the business of Formula One took time off. And you had some really interesting news pop up. Jack Doohan has signed for Alpine in 2025 alongside Pierre Gasly. Now, if you recognize the name, Mick Doohan was one of the top motorcycle champions, 500cc motorbike champion, world champion, and a hell of a guy, very rugged, tough man. And his son Jack has actually racked up tons of mileage in F1 cars over the last few years, preparing for just this moment. He did a lot of private tests. I think he's done 6 FP1 sessions to date, and Mexico and Abu Dhabi in 22 and 23, and then Canada and Britain this year. So it's a great signing. It's always good to have an Australian on the grid and another Australian on the grid. So is he going to be the guy? It could be a great compliment to Gasly next year. So let's see how that goes. He certainly sounded extremely happy about it. Well, the big news, and it's of no surprise, is that Logan Sargent had another mind-numbingly expensive wreck this weekend. And every time he goes off, I just go, oh crap, this can't get any worse for him. His confidence is ratcheting itself. It's circling the drain all the way to the bottom. And it's not that he's not a talented driver. He won enough races on the way up, but he has not cut it in Formula One, and he'll go on to great things. But the news just before we started taping this show was that indeed he has got fired. So it's ended the speculation. He's got fired. We were wondering when we anticipated that who would be taking his seat. And the rumors were Liam Lawson, who obviously showed so well in his run earlier in the year, and Mick Schumacher was talked about as having another opportunity to come back into the sport, into Formula One. He's part of that Mercedes squad. He's doing a lot of sim work. So there was a lot of push by Toto Wolff, who's a big fan of the Schumachers. But it wasn't either of them, guys. It wasn't. I'm going to have to even read the name because I wasn't really very familiar. But it is F2 racer Franco Colapinto is now in that seat. That's quite stunning, really. He's joined the Williams Racing Driver Academy in 2023, made his FP1 debut at the British Grand Prix this year, and really impressed. So he obviously really impressed because it was a little bit under the radar for me, and here he is being chosen for that job. So I think it's absolutely a great opportunity, and he's the first Argentine driver in 23 years. I'm sad for Logan. He had his shot. I'm sure we'll see him in sports cars. Good luck, mate. Don't let it get you down. But boy, a very public way to end a career. What I said at the top about a team having an injunction slapped on them, well, that was Haas. Haas were given an injunction by its Russian sponsor in the shape of Dmitry Mazepin. If you remember, his son, ex-Formula One driver Nikita Mazepin, had a drive with Haas when, that little thing about invading Ukraine kind of thwarted his Formula One career. They paid quite a lot of money, but they wanted $9 million of their sponsorship back, and it hadn't happened yet. So the courts said that both cars were going to be seized post-race until that was paid, which totally would have screwed them up going into Monza this weekend. Anyway, the cash was paid, and all is good. So it's not like Gene Haas can't afford it, but $9 million is still a big chunk of cash. So everybody is harmonious for the main part as they head into these couple of days transportation. As we speak right now, there'll be literally all those equipment will be heading across Europe down to Monza for the next race. So much fun to talk about. Well, guys, the Las Vegas Concours is back for 2024. One of the world's most prestigious automotive events takes place November 1st through the 3rd at Wynn Golf Club, right here at the beautiful Wynn Las Vegas. It's a one-of-a-kind, immersive experience. The Las Vegas Concours is an exhibition featuring more than 250 distinctive automobiles from around the world, paying homage to remarkable cars of the past, present, and future. A celebration of heritage, craftsmanship, and innovation, the Las Vegas Concours at Wynn Las Vegas brings these car enthusiasts from all corners of the globe to revel in automotive excellence, all set, of course, against the dynamic backdrop of the Las Vegas Strip. And who will you find emceeing and holding together and hosting the event? On stage, doling out the heavy hardware to this year's winners? Well, it's me, of course. So come and say hello this November. But for more information regarding recently added rooms and packages, you can visit lasvegasconcours.com. That is lasvegasconcours.com. Well, let's bring on our guest. Renger van der Zande is one of the most charming, talented, young racing drivers that I've had the chance to get to meet over the last few years. And he's become a good friend, good family friend. He's a Dutch driver who currently is under contract with Chip Ganassi Racing, which is obviously a huge honor. He's part of Chip's, Chip Lake's winners squad, and he competes in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. He's a second generation as well. His father was a Dutch national rallycross champion, Ronald van der Zande. But basically, Renger's gone on to great success. He's won IMSA championships. He's won Daytona. He's won Sebring. He gets always picked to go to Le Mans with anything Chip Ganassi does. He is one of the guys, and truly, truly fast. And he was in the pits and paddock at this week's Grand Prix. So he is a man that will know exactly what was going on. So, well, Renger, I'm glad you made it back from one party to start another. You're in Ibiza right now. Is that what famous race car drivers do with their time off?
I guess because the whole plane was full of it. So yeah, it was a hell of a party, and on Sunday night even it continued for quite a while until deep in the night. But then in the morning, it was time to catch this flight to Ibiza, and it's I'm here with the family, so not much partying going on, just a little, and then easy. But how are you guys doing?
Really good, really good. I mean, it feels that the break for Formula One, the 3-week break, went so fast. Suddenly they're back. And just talk about it. You, obviously, I wanted to talk to you for so many reasons, but you're Dutch. You were there. You went to the Grand Prix. I know you know a lot of the drivers. Just talk about the weekend. Talk about the atmosphere, the party, how it all went down.
I mean, it's funny how it went, because the first year it was just a big surprise that we even got a Grand Prix in Holland. That's first of all. Then second of all, he won it the first year. Then last year there was this amazing race with the rain and stuff, and he was just flying, Max Verstappen. Where as a Dutch guy, you can only be a Max Verstappen fan, right? I mean, he's just unbelievably good. And if I talk to my neighbors, they talk about Formula One now. The woman, not the guy. So it's and then it's one big party. It was sold out. It's full orange. One big party, and I have to say I'm super proud on the event as a whole, because the way they organized it and the way the transport of the track is to the track for all the people who are gonna watch the race, it's not easy to get that done, and because it's almost like a bottleneck at the beach. Everybody on his bike, everybody in a Dutch way of travel to get to the track. It's proud to be Dutch for that weekend.
Yeah, I forgot about the bikes. Last year on this show, I had a statistic, and I think it was like 60% of the people cycled into the track or something. That's pretty wild, man. You don't do that here. We don't in America. We're not gonna cycle anywhere. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And if you see, where the track is at the dunes, so that's why you see the elevation of the track as well. And with the corners being, naturally there because they were flowing over the dunes. But also, if you see the dunes arriving, it's full of Dutch people, all in orange, arriving at the track. And of course, there's these VIPs who come with their helicopter and, with their big VIP passes to get straight into the track. But honestly, that day, you want to be on the bike between everybody else and just get to the track. So it's an awesome day for all of us.
So were you working there? Were you doing anything for Dutch TV, or were you just enjoying being there?
No, I used to be there the first year, the second year in the Founders Lounge, which is like the people who made it possible to get the Grand Prix of the Crown in Holland, because it's one of the two Grand Prix that is not government funded. It's quite amazing how they got it done. So it's private people and private companies who kind of funded it to make sure that the fees to the FOM is paid to get the Grand Prix in Zandvoort. But there's a Founders Lounge, so the people who have invested and supported that. And I had to do some commentating there for the first 2 years. And then the last two, how many years are we there? The third year, right? This year and last year, I did also a bit of TV. This year, I was in the Ziggo studio, which I'm doing every Saturday night, Friday night, and some of the Saturday nights, just as a host. I'm still a current race car driver, and I'm there with Robert Doornbos and some of the other joker funny people who know a lot about entertainment. But I'll keep it serious on my end most of the time, to talk about the technique and the racing and the drivers and all that.
Well, let's dive in there, because I thought it was an extraordinary weekend, right? Through a lot at the drivers, through a lot at the teams. We saw upgrades on the McLaren that everybody's like, oh, how's that going to be? We saw Max running a high downforce rear wing and probably making a mistake. I mean, you can dive into all that, but give us your summary of the race start. The builder, obviously qualifying, Lando got poled, Max on the front row. The energy must have been amazing, but from a racing point of view, describe those opening few minutes of the race and what really went down.
Yeah, when I saw the start of the race, the Red Bulls just went for it better with the traction, the control of the traction. There's no traction control, but they just got off the line at the same time as the McLarens, but just had more grip. And was it the colder temperature of the McLaren tires, or was it too hot maybe? But they didn't go away. Red Bull in front, I thought it was done, because you can't overtake in Zandvoort. But you can only overtake if the speed is just so much better than your guy in front of you. And that's what happened. Lando was just controlling for 5-6 laps, and then was like waiting and sliding a little bit more of the Max Verstappen going around Zandvoort. And, he thought, I'm going to have him soon. And that's what happened. He got him by the first time almost. The second time, he halfway down the straight, he was already by. Max was like, okay, let it happen.
You're a driver that understands the technology in those cars. The reaction time of Lando was good off the line. He if anything, he had it was exactly the same. But then it's obviously different phases of that launch, right? And it's the second phase that he seems to get wheel spin in. Is that driver controlled? Is that system controlled?
For me, it's too obvious if you see two McLarens accelerating the same way, that they got the settings wrong. And I think you can do a lot of clutch control. They kind of like control the clutch with the hand, and it's a driver's thing. But the reaction time is a driver, and then after that, it's controlled a lot by the settings. And they can do that burnout the first time when they get to the grid, right? And they kind of get a feel for how much grip there is, and they set the clutch to it. So I think it's more like a McLaren thing than a driver's thing. But we all thought in Holland, that's Lando again. He's blowing the start again because it's becoming a thing for him. If he's on pole position, he's not gonna make it.
No, I'm sure it's in his head too, but that's, I think, why he said in the press conference after, I'm pretty used to going backwards at the start. So I think you're right, Renger. He just chilled out, just let it settle in, and then he did the business. What is the energy like? Just tell me, when Max took the lead into the first corner, can you hear the crowd? Does it go mad?
Oh yeah, it goes completely crazy. And I have to watch out what I say on television because people are coming after me if it's bad about Max, So even at the party in the evening, I said something like, I think it's pretty good that he didn't win. And I mean it. It's pretty good that he didn't win because next year everybody wants to be there again when he wins. But the people was like, you're too criticism Max and all that. And it's like people got a little drunk already. So I was like, okay, guys, you say whatever you want. See you later. But yeah, it's kind of intense with the Dutch people sometimes when it's about Max. It has to be positive almost.
It does. But it also, McLaren are running in orange. It is a good color over there. And it looked like Lando has a lot of fans in Holland too. It looks like the Dutch fans really get behind him.
He's half Belgium, so he's close to our border, and he's just a cool guy, isn't it? He's a bit of a kid. I see him as a kid. How can you not like a kid, right? So he's a likable person, So, but he's an orange. I said the same thing on TV. I said, at least an orange car won for the orange crowd, and everybody looked at me like, yeah, whatever, yeah. So you have to watch out what you say.
Yeah, you're getting American on us. You're starting to be losing a little bit of that national pride. So the race unfolds. We see incredible pace. Obviously, Lando takes off into the distance, but there was a lot of action behind, Renger. Really interesting action. What was your interpretation of Charles Leclerc's Ferrari pace? Because he did some good overtaking. He looked sounded surprised to be on the podium at the end. Ferrari were a non-feature, but then they became a feature. What was the talk on the street about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear that they didn't have the car to get on the podium all weekend long, but they made some changes overnight and they made the car to work. But on top of it, we have to say Ferrari had a good strategy. We haven't said that much in the past. So, they kind of like get that going where they lapped him 5 laps earlier, I think it was, than the people in front of him, or later. I think it was earlier. And that's what got him on the podium. So they did the right thing at Ferrari and they got the car to fight it with. But at one point, I even thought that I think Max should have not been even second. I think he made it on second by the talent he has and the car that was on the limit. But I think if he didn't have the advantage of starting the first lap as first and pulling away a little bit, I think the Ferrari would have finished in front of him.
Yeah, wow. I mean, we're ending up in this really interesting stage of this championship, right? The manufacturers is pretty much a given now in McLaren's direction, which is wild for us to be saying that. But mathematically, Lando can catch Max for the championship.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Why? Because it's one or two offs by the Red Bull, and if he keeps winning, then he's close. So I think the championship is very close. I think it's not a done deal at all. And I think, like you say, in the midfield, it's so close, so much to watch to as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you and I know about racing is that from the outside, it's this, even if it's IMSA, it's WEC, Le Mans, it's a massive industry. But when you're on the inside, everybody, it's a family, right? The engineers, we know them from other teams. You see the drivers grow up. There's a lot of gossip that goes around in the paddock. What is the feeling about Mercedes? I mean, Lewis won a race just the other day, so how does that go so wrong for them in Holland?
You know what I think, Justin? I think actually that we always talk about the upgrades and one car being fast and the other car keep being fast, but I think there's still a lot like we know from sports car racing in setup. If you don't get the setup right, and it's so close, the field is so close, you don't perform. You don't get everything out of the car, and they still need to, because the field is so close, get everything out of the car in terms of setup. A little bit of ride height, or a little bit of spring rates, or tire pressures, or everything has to be right to get everything out. And I think Red Bull was just off with the setup more than anything. So, the one who nails the setup, and I think they did with Mercedes in Spa, they got it right there. They did a couple other races with Lewis in Silverstone, and then if you don't get it right, then that's it.
It's so funny. Setup is something, obviously, that the casual fan watching at home, no one knows what that means, right? But we're talking, you can change ride height in these cars by a 16th of an inch, and you can feel it through in the way the car responds at the front. And I mean, so still, for all the technology, there's still some fundamental setup issues, right? You have to get the basics right. And I mean, I think that's something that we minimize. Right? When we look at Formula One, we expect them to be that good every weekend, like Red Bull has been. I know you got tourists near you, but I can hear he's in Ibiza, everybody. So there's tourists at the top of the old castle. Out of the Ferrari drivers, I'm a big Carlos Sainz fan. I think he is a remarkable racing driver. I like the way he goes racing. He pulled off some great overtakes. He overtook on a track more than anyone else, really, during the race. That was a good showing. Were you enjoying that?
I was. I think Ferrari had a good car as well. Don't forget that. But I think a guy like Gasly, I mean, he was on the podium the year before when all the rain was. He was free practice 3. He was fastest in the rain. Zandvoort is his track, and then scoring a point where Ocon was just all the way in the back. And Gasly finishing 9th, those kind of like midfielders, it's sometimes you think, how would they do it if they are in the top car, right? But there's some really good, the top 10, all of them, if they're in the top car, they're going to be really, really good. So Carlos is for sure one of them, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want you to put yourself in your position. You're at Daytona 24 Hours. You're going to take the win. And you have to make a decision whether you're going to tell Chip Ganassi on the pit board that you want to go for fastest lap. You probably don't tell Chip you want to go for fastest lap on the last lap of the race, right? So could you relate to Lando not even saying anything and just pushing in that lap? You're a pro driver. What does it take to go and do that at the end of a Grand Prix when you've dominated? You've still got to take a risk to do the lap time.
Massive risk. Hey, can you imagine if he just puts it in the gravel?
No, I can't.
You got something to explain there. If you knock off a wing and you come with 3 wheels over the start-finish line in 3rd position, that would even be good at that point. But no, I think that's maximum risk, and that makes one driver like Lando the good as he is. I mean, that's he was full confident. And honestly, man, if you see the lap time he pulled off in that last lap, it was like more than a second faster than it was doing for every lap. So he just had it in the pocket. So it also shows how much he was cruising. So how scary is that for the rest of the year, right?
Well, we saw it with Max for 3 years. I mean, I know that we've all made a big deal out of he won by 32 seconds, but I've said the whole way through when Max was dominating, Max could win by a minute every race if he wanted to. I mean, right? It just doesn't make sense to do that.
No, but I think you're right. And I think I also read something today on the news where Dominicale at the beginning of the season actually asked Red Bull to not pull away that much. So it's bad for the show. But then you see, how quickly it can turn if an upgrade goes wrong, like it is at Red Bull right now, or if they don't get the setup right completely. So it also it just multiplies. When everything works, suddenly one car is quick and then really quick. So. But it's cool to see. Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport, man, and it's at the same time, the money they spend and the level they are at. But then at the same time, it's still human who have to make the decision, and they also go with wrong decisions. So that's the cool thing about Formula One.
Yeah. So you've known Max a long time. He's one of your countrymen. I mean, you've seen him through his racing career. You're a little ahead of him age-wise, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I remember him when he was my son's age, like 5 years old, I had a karting race in Marienburg in Belgium, and there was this little aggressive guy walking into my tent, and he kicked me. He walked up to me and he kicked me in my leg. I was like, "Who is this?" But it was Jos Verstappen, his father, who was doing some of the engines of our team. And he was just an aggressive little kid, but in a fun way. He was like a small little kid who was having fun. But you could see already he was born and raised in motorsport. He's done everything together with Jos right to get to Formula One. But there was only one goal, only one mentality, and that was go racing and win a Formula One. And I even think that winning that Abu Dhabi race when he won the World Championship for the first time, that was the end of his path. Everything else is just a bonus and just being there. But I can't see him continuing for too long, because I think he achieved it at that point, at that moment, and that was it for it. That's what he lived for.
That's an interesting perspective. How is his mindset now? Now he's under pressure. Now he's having to fight. I sat on this show saying Max is a guy that wants to fight in a race. I don't think he's a guy that wants to have the easy route, right? I mean, if he could have a hard race to a victory, he would rather do that. But now it's not so easy. What do you think as he goes home and talks to his... I mean, I know I'm putting you in his mind, but, what do you think he says to Jos? What do you think he says to himself? These are not easy weekends.
Yeah, very true. And I spoke to Guido on the plane again as well. And, he's very close with Jos. And he said Jos is flat out. He's involved with everything. The father is still trying to, manipulate whatever it takes to win races. And that's the mentality of Verstappen family is exactly that. They are just in it to win it and nothing else. So that's why if there's political mess or engineering mess or mechanics mess, they're going to go straight to the core and fix it and don't leave any prisoners alive, I would say. So it's an aggressive way how they go about, but it's the way to become win world championships. So those guys are all in it.
Wow. When you look at the new guys coming up, who do you see who's got that type of ruthlessness?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Magnus is still a great friend of mine, and he came for dinner on Thursday night in Zandvoort just to hang out, and I speak to him regularly about everything, and he's moving out of Formula One, but there are some new talents that come in we really want to see, like Kimi Antonelli. I mean, have you seen this GT3 race last weekend when he was doing I think it was in Misano, he was like killing it, just in a GT car, getting more race experience. But then, those guys, it's going to take some time before they get up to speed, but he's been testing with that Mercedes Formula One car all around the world, I think he was, getting as much kilometers and getting ready for a Formula One seat next year. So my eyes are on him. I want to see how that is. The hype is big, so can he live up to the hype? Formula One is not always about being the fastest, being the most talented. I think it's also about someone who can deal with the pressure, deal with the travel, deal with the jet lags, and deal with all of that.
And talking about Kimi, obviously he's the hot prospect, but he's going to do FP1 this weekend instead of George. That's. I mean, I wonder why they wouldn't use instead of Lewis. You know what I mean? But he's going to get the chance to drive out there. There will be a lot of attention on that guy.
Yeah, I don't get it why they get him into the Russell car. I think it makes more sense to get Lewis out of the car, but I think he's the top guy right now to keep your eyes on. And at the same time, he has to live up to a lot of pressure, but he seems like such a relaxed guy. I was in the Prima party, Christmas party in December in Venice, in Italy. And it was just amazing to see how he was like with the mechanics, having fun. And if you see the videos on the internet where he get like completely covered with kind of like, I don't know what it was, with cream, he's having fun. And that's the most important if you go into Formula One. The pressure is high, live up to good expectations, but you have to have fun. Otherwise it's not going to work. So he looks like he could actually be something. But, at the same time, that car needs to perform as well, because you need the car in Formula One to do it.
I have a prediction about... Well, I had a prediction about Lando and Oscar. I thought that if there was a moment of time where if Lando didn't start winning consistently for his confidence, I thought he might be a bit more vulnerable mentally than Oscar Piastri. I think Oscar is absolutely like ice cold, right? I mean, he is cool, calm, and ready to do it. I think psychologically he is a stronger driver ultimately than Lando. What are your thoughts on that?
If you see the Lando Piastri moments, if you see Lando and Piastri together, I think Lando is just 2-3 tenths in front of Piastri, and I think mentally I agree. I think Piastri is like a machine. He's like ice cold, and he can deliver championships like no other in the junior series. But don't forget, in junior series, people do crazy moves. That's why they're juniors, and if you don't do that, you win championships. So maybe that's why we think like how he won everything in. He must be super quick, but maybe he's just very solid, super solid. He's like a machine, and Lando has the advantage on speed, and then speed still counts. So yeah, but I'm surprised he's not catching up that 2-3 tenths in the race to Lando. I'm in doubt, to be honest. I don't know where they are. I think the speed wise he's not there yet.
So we go to Monza this weekend. I mean, it's a short gap right on the heels heading into the next race. A very different type of track, super fast. But it doesn't sound like Red Bull and Max are that optimistic going in there either. And Lando's playing it down, right? He's like, don't talk about next week. Just talk about this week. Those are sort of psychological games a little bit, I think. But what are your predictions for next week?
Yeah, I think if you see that, if I win a race, I'm like, oh, it's going to be easy. I'm going to win the next 5 as well. It's easy. But then you come to the next race and it's all mixed up again. So I wouldn't be surprised if, especially in Monza, where suddenly a Williams can be in the front or in the top 5, not winning the race. So it's also that track is very depending on how good the car is. So don't ever underestimate a Mercedes. Don't ever underestimate a Red Bull. The McLaren is the car to beat, but who knows, man? Actually, it's one of the tracks where McLaren won with Daniel Ricciardo that year. So, it's also a track where strategy comes into play a lot. And if something happens funny there, somebody else might get the win there. But Gasly again, talking about Gasly again, but he actually had a win there. So this is one of the tracks you wouldn't see it from the layout, but it's one of those tracks where a lot can happen.
Yeah, no, and we do have a lot of movement in those last couple of seats, right? Just a little bit to play for. Still, obviously, we're waiting to. I mean, Williams is full up. With Jack Doohan has just signed for Alpine, which is amazing, right? Which I think will be great for the sport. Also, great crossover from the motocross. The fans of his dad, Mick Doohan. I mean, I think it exposes Formula One, across from the MotoGP side. I know nothing about him, but obviously they picked him for a reason. What's the talk of the paddock? That's a good hire?
I think there's a couple guys who are there, and I don't know how good he is. He's for sure he's going to be good, and it's like in most of the racing series. He must be a guy who connects well with the team, does good simulator work, and he's there's no doubt he's going to be fast. But then the same for Drugovich. I think he's one of the guys in the race for one of those Audi seats. So it's really nice to see that there's young talent coming into Formula One and going to be able to show what they got. And I think it's about time as well. I really like Fernando Alonso. I love to see him what he's doing every time again. But those guys are old. I mean, it's time for new, fresh talent and beat the old guys. I really hope that's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, you're going to become one of those old guys soon.
Hey guys, see you later. You're
not for the moment.
Is losing.
Just a little shameless self-promotion. Great season so far. What's your next race?
So, well, good season. We were second in the championship before Road America, and we had a very bad race weekend there. The speed was more or less there. We had a bit of issues with crashing and blowing tire, but at the same time, we're third in the championship, 2 races to go. Indianapolis, 8 hours, and then the 10 hours of Petit Le Mans, which are great races. So yeah, I'm proud to be racing with Chip Ganassi Racing, Cadillac, and try to see if we can still win the championship. But we have to beat 2 Porsches to do that, because it's Porsche first and second, and then us in third position to fight for that championship. But let's get some silverware. And normally, if you win championships, you win races. So let's win the last 2 races.
Okay, well, Renger, we're going to do Mobil1 Pit Stop now for the love of driving. Just some little short answers, if you can hear me properly. Which driver did you race against in karting that you knew would make it to Formula One?
Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg. For sure. They were with AMG already. It was clear they were going to go straight to Formula One. Yeah. My teammate Nico Hülkenberg, he, uh, he he was very talented. He was German, and that was the time when all the Germans almost like got the ride for free in Formula One. It was like half of the grid was German. So he was very good. He was very talented, and he had a great career too. He was my teammate. We as 14 years old, we were always in a Mercedes Sprinter bus going from Amsterdam to the south of Italy, and then Sunday nights drove straight back to go to school on the Monday morning again. So great history with those guys. Yeah.
You didn't get to race Formula One, but which body part would you cut off to be able to have the chance to race a Formula One car?
Oh, not my hair. No. I'll take off an hair, easy. Done deal.
Easy. But you would like to do it for sure, right? Given the chance, you would have jumped at it?
Yeah, I mean, Niki Lauda as well. He didn't have the ear, and he won championships with it. So it would actually be my pick. Yeah.
That's funny, man. Who do you think is the best driver in the world right now?
Max Verstappen. And if I don't say that, I do mean it. If I don't say that, I get killed probably by a Dutch guy around me here. So that's political and the right answer.
What do you wish race fans knew about being a professional racing car driver that they don't? What is something they don't know about our lifestyle that you wish they knew?
I wish they knew the passion that we have about racing. The passion it goes from a young kid. And Justin, you made a photo from my kid on the grid in Sebring when he was watching me putting my helmet on. And you said you saw yourself watching your dad going into a race car. And I think that's where it starts. I think, as a kid, you have that feeling that you love racing, the passion. I wish people could, we try to get them as close as we get to what we're doing, the passion that we have, but I would love them to feel that,
Wow, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. That was the Mobil1 Pit Stop. I'm going to let you carry on and enjoy Ibiza, because the fact that you're sober at the end of your first vacation day to do this show it means a lot. So, but now you don't have to be. So, hey, listen, man, we'll see you at the next race over here. Thank you so much. And take care, buddies. Love to your wife and the kids.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Enjoy. Good to be here. All right, see you later.
You don't need to go 200 miles an hour to outrun your inbox or pull multiple G's around corners just to decline a phone call. You don't have someone waving a yellow flag telling you to slow down and look around. Basically, you don't need to be a professional driver to disconnect and break free. All you have to do is drive. Mobil 1, for the love of driving. Visit loveofdriving.us/drive to win to learn more. Well, we talk about Monza. Monza brings back all sorts of memories for me. It's one of the most celebrated racetracks. It is a place where the legends of motorsport actually did their finest battles. Some lost their lives there, but all made their name there. I remember going with my dad to watch the Monza 1,000-kilometer race. I was probably 12 years old. And we walked into the park that is basically the racetrack is in. And it's just, it was incredible. And Dad said to me, he said, just listen. He said, you can almost hear the sound of those 60s Formula One cars resonating through the trees. It's a very spiritual place for racing fans and race drivers. And of course, it is for Ferrari pretty much their spiritual home, and for the Tifosi, the Ferrari fans, it is a pilgrimage every year. So, in the same way that the Dutch were swarming in their Orange Army at Zandvoort, very much this will be a sea of red going into this weekend. Now, Monza, I said it's historic. It opened its doors September 3rd, 1922, and that's just a week before it hosted the first Italian Grand Prix, and it's pretty much been part of the Formula One calendar since 1950 and has held the Italian Grand Prix every year except one. It's a unique track because the cars are on full throttle for 80%. Just think about that. That is, when they look at the data trace, they are wide open for 80%. And they actually hit their VMAX, their fastest speed on the circuit's 1.1 kilometer front straight. So wildly fast, which brings and sees a lot of different dynamics to the racing. You have to trim your car out. You have to get that optimal speed. And certainly after last weekend, I'm sure Max Verstappen will not be running Monaco-style rear wing. Well, last year we saw Max win his 10th race in a row by the time they got to Monza, and he won again, obviously, that race. And coming off the back of the last weekend, how will he fare this weekend? For me, I think that he will definitely be in those debriefs over these couple of days, working very hard with his engineers and the team and crew chief to say, where were those mistakes? Like Renger said, what was the moment where it sort of diverged from the harmony that they had when they could dominate and they knew they unloaded off the truck with the car in the right place? They need to go back a little bit to find that. Do they have the time before this weekend? I'm not sure, but I definitely know that you never count the Red Bulls out. You never count the Mercedes out. That's just what Renger said too. I think we're in for a really interesting race. I predict that Lando is moving into that rare air that every driver would aspire to, which is when you know that when you pull into the track that weekend, you're the fastest. You know your car is the fastest. You know you came off the back of a win. The expectations are there that you can win again. So I think we're going to see a pretty dominant display by him. I think there's a fragility to his emotions in a way. I think he is more vulnerable to outside influence than Oscar Piastri. But when things are going great, which they are right now, let's face it, I think he's going to be pretty formidable. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to maybe a race where we get a lot more overtaking because of the wide open DRS zones. I think there's going to be some people to really keep an eye on. Obviously, watching FP1 and watching Kimi Antonelli come in and do his first FP1 in George Russell's seat is going to be really exciting. Don't expect too much, though, because he will be under orders to impress but not depress. Don't go from hero to zero. Don't mess it up. You pretty much being a shoo-in for next year, or certainly at some point a top Formula One seat with Mercedes. So don't go and screw it up now. And I think that's so. Don't expect him to be fastest, but he's 18 years old. His brain is underdeveloped. I mean, they just know how to go fast. That's why soldiers are 18 years old, because, you know, men's brains take about 6 years longer than women to develop fully. And that's why it makes us so brave and very ruthless. So we are going to see some level of performance out of these young guys. But again, don't be too crazy. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. I hope you do too. If I was a betting man, I am going to say it will be Lando will win. It will be, I think, you know what, you could end up having Lewis back up there again too. So I really do. I think he's going to have a good weekend. So Lando, Lewis, and then, well, let's throw, I think Max isn't going to have a great weekend. I think we could see Carlos Sainz up there too. So that's my very rough prediction for the top three, but I'll probably be wrong. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I mean, it's really fun to get back, get into the swing of things. It's 10 more races to the end of the year. Obviously, ending up here in Las Vegas is going to be, well, not ending up, but the penultimate race will be here in Las Vegas, which we're all already gearing up for. So a big thanks to the Wynn Las Vegas for having me here. Love the new studio. And to Mobil1 for the love of driving. Stay in touch on social media. Hope you like the show. See you next week.